Welcome to Self-Taught, where former foster youth, like myself, share our real-life experiences with sex, health, and life. Hosted by the Reproductive Health Equity Project, these are some conversations we wish we'd had earlier. Hey everyone, I'm Kat, and I'm serving on Reproductive Health Equity Project. That's REP's Youth Advisory Board. We just call it YAB for short. And we're going to talk a little bit about our experiences and what REP has been up to and how we're bringing them together to make a beautiful thing. And I'm also working alongside my friend Phillisha.
Hey, Kat, thank you. I'm Phillisha, and I'm in the general Elsinore area. And as Kat mentioned, working with the Youth Advisory Board, here to talk about reproductive health.
Phillisha and I jump right into this episode and start talking about going to see the doctor.
Speaking of going to the doctor, can I just complain about how difficult it was for me to actually make an appointment? Because I don't know if you can speak to this at all, but for me, just to make an appointment, the reason it's taken me all year is through Medi-Cal. I have some other company that does the insurance paid by Medi-Cal, and then they pay some providers, which I don't understand how that works. And then those providers set me up to a specific doctor's office, which has a different name. So I don't understand how any of this works, but all I know is that I'm supposed to call this phone number. And every time I call it, for the last 2 years, this has been going on. You call the phone number and it would ring, and then it'll just hang up on you. And then I finally started going in to whatever I could find and being like, hey, your phone number doesn't work. And they're like, yeah, we know we can't do anything about it because, we're just the people at the bottom. So now it'll ring, and then I'll go press 1 if you want to be put on a callback list. And so you press 1 and you never get a phone call back.
And it cycles back. Yes. One of the reasons I joined REP was because growing up in foster care, there was no one taught me how to do this, how to make an appointment or how to even just get to the doctor's office, which one I had to go to, what type of insurance they take, and discovering the different types like that. So now being able to explain and figure out more of that, it's still hard, but it's just I'm able to help other people figure it out easier. And with COVID, a lot of places have just been oh, there's gonna be a delay. And it's is there really a delay though, or are you just using it? And so I haven't had to schedule for an appointment recently. Thank goodness online is just kind of go straight into there, into the appointment system and stuff. But finding a doctor is pretty intense.
Yeah, it's hard to find a good one too. Even if you can get to one, you want one that feels the same way you do, because
cares.
Yeah. It's I feel medicine is more art than science almost, because there's so many ways of interpreting stuff. I've had multiple doctors tell me contradicting things. So it's it definitely takes
I'm I need a second opinion, or maybe I need a third. Gotcha.
Yeah. And what's weird is the doctors that should be, so my roommate, poor guy, he fell off a 2-story roof, and we had to do the same thing to get him a doctor's appointment. And it's been the same runaround. He gets really great insurance that should be paying them a ton to do a great job. But I actually had way better experiences with Planned Parenthood that doesn't necessarily get that kind of funding. And I feel maybe that's why, because they're not in it for the money or something, or it doesn't make a difference to their paycheck.
I'm not completely sure about how it works for them, but I've had good experiences with Planned Parenthood rather than I've been to a doctor that was okay, what's your do you have insurance, or are you gonna pay cash? And I'm oh, I have Medi-Cal, and they're they just completely start changing the way they address me and how bedside manner is just here, okay, do this instead of, so this is how we're gonna do it, and do you feel more comfortable this way or that way? And like Planned Parenthood is just, if you have it, you do. If you don't, we'll get you onto something, which has been like really good for me growing up because I didn't know I had Medi-Cal for a long time. Like no one told me, oh, you're a foster youth, so you have Medi-Cal, or did your parents sign you up? So I just went into Planned Parenthood like, oh, I don't have any insurance, and they're like, well, let's get you on something, and then we'll figure it out. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's cool.
That's
Like I
amazing.
don't have
Could
to.
you like elaborate on that story? Like tell me, like paint me a picture of what it was like for you to go in there, not knowing what, if anything, they can do for you, and like how it really was. Like walk me through it.
Yes. So it's a little personal, but I got shingles when I was 13, and I went to a hospital, and like my back was blistering up so like really badly. And unfortunately, the hospital was like, "Oh, do you have insurance? How are you gonna pay?" And I'm like, "I don't know." And I was by myself. I just like felt something itchy on my back at the time, and I was in the system. So the caretaker, unfortunately, that I was with didn't take me. Then about a month later, I went back home with my mom, and she took me to another hospital. And they were just like, "Oh, people your age don't get this, and what insurance do you have?" And they were just speaking to my mom and not me, like, so I didn't really know what was going on. And they just sent me home. They're like, "Oh, just go home. Here's a cream." Nothing happened. Then I went back into the system and didn't hear from my mom, but then I was in pain at that point, and it was just blistering so fast. And I'm like, what, like, where do I go? How am I going to do this? And right down the street, there was a Planned Parenthood. And they're like, oh, well, we handle more different types of, uh, what's the word, of medical needs. And I'm like, but I've been to two hospitals and I don't know what's happening. And then the doctor's just like, come, I'll check you out. And he didn't ask about my insurance until later, until like after he looked at me and said, this is what you should do. This is where you should go. I know a really good place that will help you. And then they like, it was literally one sheet of paper that I had to fill out to get a green card instead of like the which I didn't know at the time was the blue and white Medi-Cal card. And they gave me a green card, and they're like, just go here with this, and they'll help you. So I got to that doctor, and this guy's like, okay, let's go to the hospital. So literally, this doctor from a small doctor's office takes me to the hospital, and he's like advocating for me, letting them know that this is what's happening on her back. And I was a timid little girl. Like I was afraid to say hi to people. They just be like, "How you?" And I'm like, okay, you know. So when he was speaking for me, I just felt like so really like kind of the pain went away just a bit, you know, just knowing that someone else is handling it. And I ended up getting the best care at that hospital. But it took like a lot of steps and a lot of people to get there.
Yeah. So he like literally like took you in his car and was like, come with me. We're gonna go to
Let's
the.
go to the hospital.
Wow.
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah.
do you think he's even allowed to do that? Or do you think he was like, this little girl needs somebody that actually cares? We're doing this. You know what I mean?
I think it was more that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't imagine being allowed to do that. But he was like,
Right.
this. That's amazing.
Yeah. And there was a lady in that hospital that started talking to me about, oh, have you had like STD testing and all this stuff? And I'm like, what's that? Like, I'm not, you know, like I'm
Yeah.
13. I don't know. And so it got pretty intense, but I learned a lot just from that one person speaking for me. So
Yeah, that's fantastic. It's so good to have. That's, I mean, the only way that I've survived is like finding somebody that like you seem like you know what's going on and just like I just cling to that person until, until I can get there by
Yes.
myself. But I totally understand what you mean about like being a kid and you're like super timid and you don't know. And I mean, personally, I was always like very, and still in a lot of ways am, but I've always been very squeamish about like periods and like all that stuff. And that's like why I joined Rep, because I'm like, if I'm feeling that way, and if I'm struggling in that way of being squeamish and don't want to talk about weird stuff, then other people
Yeah.
must be too.
Right. Yeah. It's like I'm not the only one. So, do you have any experiences of like learning about reproductive and sexual health?
Yeah.
How did you learn?
Yeah, well, actually not as a kid too much at all, because right, so I'm like adopted, and my particular experience with being adopted is I think fairly unique to other foster kids. So it might be a little bit confusing to explain, but more or less, I was adopted by my grandma. And I think she always assumed that I was going to get the talk at school, and or assumed that somebody else would give it to me, because I did like live with a lot of other families throughout my upbringing. So I think a lot of everybody kind of just like passed the buck thinking that somebody else would do it. But I never
Yeah.
got the talk from school, because all you have to do is get your parent to sign the little piece of paper. And that was easy for me to do, because I wasn't, I was kind of left to my own devices mostly.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was really easy for me to be like, no, I don't want to talk about that. And, then I never had to. Little did I
Yeah.
know. Yeah. So then I remember like, this was just a couple of years ago. My body has always like reacted really overly. You think you're going to get too personal. Let me get personal. My body has always like really reacted terribly to any kind of like birth control. And so I was seeing a new boy, and I started this new, I think I tried the Nuva ring was the best for me, because I don't have to forget about it, or, you know what I mean? I don't have to, oh, I forgot my pill one day or something
Right.
like that. So I was doing the Nuva ring, and like my body had this weird reaction to it that I guess was normal, but to me it was terrifying. I like looked in the toilet and I was like, oh my God, does that brain matter? Like it was gross.
Oh,
And it
wow.
scared me, because I had no idea. Like it was like, oh, that's more than blood. Like that's like something. And I was terrified. And I went to Planned Parenthood, and they were so nice about being like, no, that's actually pretty normal. And they like explained that like, once
Yeah.
a month your uterine wall or whatever. And I mean, like, I didn't even know that, because it had never happened before. And
Mhm.
yeah, so I was really grateful for them. I would complain that I wish that they had more resources available to them, because the last time that I went to go to them for birth control, I think I done a whole bunch of research. And I don't know if have you heard of the copper IUD?
No.
Since I react so badly to everything that's hormonal, and
Mhm.
like, girl, I'm emotional enough. I don't need anything to mess with my hormones.
With the hormones, yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, copper IUD. It's like the little T thing that goes, and
Yeah.
it works for like 12 years, and there's no hormones involved. And I was like, this is
Oh,
amazing. Why doesn't everyone do this? As it turns out, it's like super duper painful, and I'm super duper squeamish.
yeah.
So I did what I always do, and I researched on Reddit, because
Reddit, yeah.
who am I going to ask? So I asked the internet about this stuff, and I basically, what I discovered was the difference is some people get it and they're like, I went for a bike ride right afterwards. It was fine. And some people are like, I was out for 2 days. It was the most painful experience of my life.
Mhm.
And the difference, I think, is you need to ask for this special kind of like numbing jelly. And so
Oh,
the day came, and I asked Planned Parenthood about it, and they didn't have it, because they just don't get funding for extra little goodies like that.
I
But
had no idea that there was a numbing jelly. I had
yeah.
the maternal IUD, and
Oh,
like I stayed in bed for like 2 days, like you
yeah.
said.
Oh, you have them. Oh, okay. So that one's not the copper. That's probably the other like hormonal one.
So no, it stays away from the hormones, thank goodness.
Oh,
Like
okay.
yes, but it's only for about 6 years.
6 years.
Yeah.
That's pretty darn good. And I mean, not fun to be out for 2 days though, but
Yeah. Yeah. So
good.
like,
Yeah.
yeah.
I was
There's a jelly though. So how did you learn about the jelly? Just read it.
read it. Yeah.
Okay.
When I'm nervous, I just research and prepare. And that's what I did. And I was like, okay, jelly. And when I was there, I was in the office and
Mhm.
it was pandemic. So I'm like outside on the phone with the people that are on the other side of the glass and stuff. But I told them, I was like, okay, well, what do you guys think? Like, how do you rate the pain? And I'm like so grateful that they were like honest with me. And like I have this really wonderful boyfriend that was there with me to like hold my hand and whatever. And
Mhm.
she was like, honestly, like if you're nervous about it at all, probably don't. Cause I mean, I have a very strong pain tolerance. Like I have a wicked good pain tolerance. But up there, like I'm also very squeamish. So I was like, I could probably handle it if it was anywhere but the most holy of holies, like,
Yeah.
So so yeah, I ultimately was like, okay, I'm gonna pass. But I was so thankful to them. I think I even like donated some money to them because I was like, it sucks that to think that they might get like more or less punished, right? Like you're losing money by telling people the truth. But that girl was like, I literally fainted and I don't want you to do that to yourself. And like I got trauma, which is very common, I think, for foster youth, that I was like, I'm not trying to like re-traumatize myself
Go
in any
through more.
way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like I built up that resilience. So
Yeah.
okay.
How did you get the talk?
Um, Besides that doctor's the hospital appointment, because the nurse was like, we're super busy, but she filled me in. She recommended me to there were like two different Planned Parenthoods, and one of them were like super busy in the area that I was in at the time. And then I moved around a lot. So it was like, okay, are they all called Planned Parenthood? Which is something I had to figure out.
Oh,
It seems like you would know that like the place is covered, but I had no idea if they were all that named Planned Parenthood or if I had to like if it was like Dr. Gill or something like that, for example. So at the time I did not have a phone. So I would go to the library a lot and I think I just kind of like well I couldn't get a library card because your parent had to sign you up, and it was like a lot of circles that I had to go through. And then eventually, I asked my big brother if he could help me, and he's like, "I got you." So he got me a library card, and then I just started getting online. And then first thing I looked up was Planned Parenthood, and I went to a few of them because it was like I would meet someone there, but then I'd be too nervous to go back or to ask about something, or I'd have questions in my head, but I didn't know how to ask them. So I finally went to one of them, and they were like, "Have you had this checkup, like your womanly checkup?" And I'm like, "No, what's that? Why?" And then it was always nice that they just like, okay, let's go over it. And is there anything that you didn't understand? And so that helps me a lot. But I would say I didn't really have like a sit down and let's go through everything. I learned it bits and pieces, which is like why I something I love about rep is like the um what's it called? The like the classes that they put together that
yeah,
youth
the
can
teen
take.
talk. Is that
Yes, like
yeah, that's what I was thinking of
yeah, it
too.
was beautiful because it went through everything and it wasn't like I wasn't left with any questions even after just trying it out, trialing it for people. I was I was like more informed than when I left. And I'm like, oh, okay. And even though I was giving insight, I'm like, oh, well, I just learned this. So let me teach it to my sibling because that's something that I wish I learned when I was younger. So that's something that was super cool. But I didn't have like it in one sitting. It was more like, oh, that goes with that. And oh, I need to do this once a year. Like, it's like, do I want to do that once a year?
Yeah, I didn't even learn like what a clitoris was until I was like 20 years old, I swear. And I mean, like I heard of it, but I was like, oh, that's where it is in my like in some women's rights class too, which is like, I get it, that's a woman, but yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my gosh. And all my friends were like, oh my.
Yeah. Yeah, I get asked a lot, like, did you take a bio class in high school? And I'm like, I didn't get that far in high school. I had to put myself back through high school when I was 18. So no. And they're like, did you take a health class? And I'm like, no. And I literally learned about my period when I was 8 years old because I had it in class. And the nurse is like, you don't know about this? And I'm like, no.
When you were
I thought
8?
I was dying. Yes.
Oh, you poor thing.
I'm in class and it's math class too. So I'm already stressed about the math. I'm a literature person, so I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to do these timetables. And then there's just blood everywhere. And I'm like, what's happening right now? And I like growing up, I was in the hood at the time, as you would say. So it was like super scary. I'm like, did someone shoot me? Or did something just happen to me that I don't know? And then the cramps hit. And I'm like, what is this? So I'm literally thinking that I'm dying and I'm stuck because I'm in front of everyone. And the teacher's like, let's get you to the nurse. And I'm like, how is she gonna help me? She just gives band-aids. Like it was terrible.
Oh.
Then that's how I learned about my period. So like imagine being in foster care at any age. You don't know what age you're gonna start. I started young. But it's like if they just had like some course I could take or like a growing up um course that would have been super helpful because like at 8 years old I had no idea that I'd be in the system, let alone be starting my period. So it's like but it was intense.
Yeah. Yeah, wow, that is a brutal like way to come in.
Yeah.
And I'm so sorry. Oh man, you told that story so vividly. I felt like I was like there. Oh, wow. Yeah, no, like yeah, what I liked about the teen talk, I'm glad you brought it up because it was totally on my mind too. And I love that it's like online too, because like for someone like me, or maybe like you, that's like very like timid and like feels weird about talking about those things or asking, it's easier to go get a computer and like go do stuff. You know what I mean? Like go figure it out on your own. I feel like something that worries me, like I've spent some years like working in childcare and stuff. And so like being on both ends of like being a kid and then like watching what other kids are like growing through, seeing kids like always having access to computers, like I can only imagine how many kids are learning through like porn and stuff. So like it'd be so nice and ideal if everyone had like some websites to balance it out, to be like, here, if you want like actual information. And I think they even talk about that in Teen Talk about, you know, what you're actually getting when you're looking at porn. Like that's not really what life is like. Like that's
Yes.
obviously dramatization.
Right. Yeah, gosh. Yeah, you can definitely like use your imagination, but that is not what it is. Yes.
Yeah. Gosh, I was gonna ask you if there were any like fun myths that you believed as a kid, but my gosh, it sounds like you got, you know what I mean? It seems like you started learning young.
It was pretty any myths. I would say a myth that I believed was, you know what? I don't have one. I thought I did, but no, a lot of things just kind of hit me hard for some reason. and it wasn't, it was like, I can't believe this is happening type things. And so, yeah, I can't really say that they're a miss because you don't expect to start your period that young, or you don't expect to like you look for love in the wrong places when you go through certain things, and then your body reacts differently, and you're just trying to figure it out. So, what about yourself? Do you have any myths?
I feel like you were going somewhere with that though, Phillisha. I'll tell you mine, but I feel like you were kind of scratching the surface of something like really heavy that you wanted to like get off of your chest. Like, I mean, like as far as like relationships and stuff, that I mean, I don't know if that's like an everyone thing or if that's more of, I feel like it's got to be more of a foster care thing, like looking for love in the wrong places. It's so yeah, yeah, that's heavy.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, relationship wise, you know, you want like that sense of belonging, but then like also like
Mhm.
your physical needs, you know, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard enough being a kid and like, you know, I can only imagine being a boy and trying to hide a boner in class or something. And then like, you know, I feel for that. Or, I mean, I can't even tell you how many times I didn't want to ask anybody for a tampon and like, there goes that
And
pair
you
of
needed
hands
one.
and like,
Yeah.
yeah, terrible. Yeah. And then, but then like that is kind of combined with not knowing healthy relationships, not having it modeled to you, not having,
Mhm.
you know, healthy relationship adults around you to talk you through like,
Boundaries.
yeah,
Yes.
boundaries are huge. Um, yeah, I feel like there's a lot to unpack there. And I also think that part of that, like looking for that acceptance, I also feel like people don't tell you, but it puts like a huge target on your back for like any kind of like predator. Like I'm talking like abusive
Oh,
relationship or anything. It's, you know, so
yeah.
I like that Health Connected kind of like the Teen Talk program by them kind of talks about healthy relationships and power dynamics. And I think that's becoming more accepted as part of it. But
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, because I would totally say that it's like, especially when I was like 16, me wanting my, like, I'm like, okay, when I have my family, it's going to be differently. Or with my siblings, it's not going to be like this. And when someone would just be like, oh, I like you and I love you. And then like you decide to give yourself to that person, you just kind of believe everything that they tell you and you want it so badly, but you don't know red flags. You don't see that. And so like one of the things that I live today, I'm like people who are like, oh, I love you. I'm like, I don't throw that word around. So it takes me a long time like to be like, I love you. And if someone says it to me, I instantly kind of back off, like, and I distance myself. And like with my oldest brother, we're like 2 years apart, and I do love him, and I know he loves me. We grew up in the system together, but when he turned about 15 and I was 13, 12, we got separated.
Yeah.
And so when we got back together around, he was probably like 17, and I'm 15, and I'm like, he's all like, oh my gosh, I miss my little sister, I love you, where you been? And I'm all like, dude, you don't know who I've been the last few years. How can you still love me? Like, and but it was the things that I've been through that made me like that. And he's like, I'm your brother though. And I'm like, yeah, but you're still a person, which kind of had me just unaware of different relationships and how it goes. And he's like, okay, I'm not the boyfriend that you were just talking to. I'm your brother. You can tell me you love me. And then like when we would text, he'd be like, if you don't, his thing was, if you don't put I love you and spell it out the right way, then it's not real. And I'm like, what? But I'm telling you, I love you. But he really, like, he would be so upset if you didn't spell it out and put it the right way. And I'm just like, for me, it's like the LUV, the quick text thing. And he's like, you can't take the time to text me. So we both had our different like ways of expressing it and taking it in. So definitely like,
Do you think
no.
that do you think that
Oh
you
no,
like writing it in short though? Like that is your way of kind of, you are still kind of, you know what I'm
shutting it
saying? I
off.
get what he's saying.
Yes.
I'm not trying to put you
Oh
on
my
blast, but
God.
I am.
No, I totally agree with it now.
Yeah.
Like my sister's 14, and if she gets out the car for school and she's like, you too. I'm like, I love you, have a good day. She's like, you too. I'm like, no, tell me you love me. Yeah, so it's I was still kind of shutting myself off. Like now you catching that to that.
Yeah.
But I learned, like so now he tells me we're like older and he's like, I love you, sis. And I'm like, oh, thank you, bro. And he's like, well, you don't love me. I'm like, I love you too. Like, give me time to reply.
Yes.
But it definitely like I knew he was my brother, but just going through things differently than he did, like I don't know what he went through throughout those years that we were separated. Um, Learning about different relationships and red flags of those relationships would have been super helpful, like me growing up, because I felt like I had to grow up kind of fast, and not having that guidance.
Yeah, I was gonna say the growing up fast. I mean, that's a foster kid thing for sure. Like for sure, for
Yes,
sure.
you have to
And
be strong.
it's, you grow up fast and then you kind of, there are these gaps that you don't even know that you have these gaps that
Hmm.
and but then you're already past them because you've grown up, if that makes sense. You have like this not great foundation, and it's not great.
Yeah, it's intense.
um
But
okay.
overall, I would say I grew up to be like a pretty resilient, um, irresponsible as much as I can be, sometimes to have my young, like, they go, let me try this now. But I feel like with where I am now, I've definitely had some good influences in reproductive health, my sexual health, just even though I didn't learn it at the times I should have, especially now that I'm older and I know, I'm able to show my siblings how I would have wanted it to been taught to me. So that's like been pretty nice.
Yeah, and I think that's probably also why I don't have like any little siblings like per se, but I think in the same way that I have like a lot of like brothers that are, you know what I mean, like how you were talking about your brother in care. I'm
Mhm.
assuming you aren't like actually blood related, but your brothers.
Oh, we are.
Oh, you are.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Oh.
No, you're fine.
Well, I have a whole bunch of like brothers that are not related to me, and yeah,
Yeah.
and I feel like I have, I think you do too, like very like motherly instincts, and
Yes.
yeah, so I like being a part of the board and kind of learning how to get over my own stuff and how to kind of
Hmm.
pass that forward to others, and like for the next kiddos that come along, hopefully make it a
Yes.
little bit easier.
That's what I
And
love about rap. Like I don't have to be one person pushing it out there. And it's like, but it's still some of me inside of it, which makes it like I'm getting the word out.
yeah, being a part of something, yeah, we're definitely stronger together, because
Yes.
I mean, this is like the first time in my life that I've really known other kids, or I guess we're not kids anymore, but people that were kids in foster care and stuff, and
Yeah.
understanding things like I never understood like why it's important to have a father figure when I was a kid. Like I never had one, so I didn't understand the lacking. And so I was
Hmm.
like, I don't get it. But now I'm an adult and now I'm with other people that have that shared experience. I have like that perspective. And so like, yeah, I'm excited to hopefully do more with that.
Yes. Same.
Thanks for stopping by. To hear more and support our cause, like this video and subscribe to our channel, and check out fosterreprohealth.org for more resources.